All right, good afternoon. Welcome to our Reliability and Security Oversight Monthly Update. My name is Maylee Cook, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here today. We didn't have one of these in January, so it's been too long since we've all been together. Let's start with a few announcements today. First, our latest update of the Oversight Trends report is available on WECC.org. Be sure to check that out. We have some additional meetings we want you to be aware of. We have a Grid Fundamentals course that will be offered virtually next week. That's February 25th and 26th from 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. both of those days. This is a great course for getting some basics about the grid. Next, we have our Reliability in the West discussion series. Our discussion for March will feature a discussion around large loads and the gaps in our understanding and areas to look for solutions to meet the challenges of large loads. So we hope to see you at that discussion, and the link for that is in the chat. We are looking forward to our Reliability and Security Workshop that will be held in Tempe, Arizona next month. That is March 25th and 26th, and we hope to see you there. If you'd like to register for that, the link is in the chat. Our antitrust policy, all WECC meetings are conducted in accordance with the WECC antitrust policy and the NERC antitrust compliance guidelines. All participants must comply with the policy and guidelines. This meeting is public. Confidential or proprietary information should not be discussed in open session. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted publicly. By participating, you give your consent for your name, voice, image, and likeness to be included in that recording. WECC strives to ensure the information presented today is accurate and reflects the views of WECC. However, all interpretations and positions are subject to change. If you have any questions, please contact WECC's legal counsel. If you would like to participate in this webinar today, we would love to answer your questions. You can submit those through the chat feature of WebEx to WECC meetings, or you can use the raise hand feature, and we will allow you to unmute and ask your question aloud. On our agenda for today, we will have an update from Donovan Crane, followed by an update by Mark Rogers and Abby Fellinger on the Inverter-based Resources Initiative, and then our main presentation on the first RFIs at Audit, the SIP evidence request tool, and O&P spreadsheet. So we'll turn the time over to Donovan first.
Perfect. Thanks, Maylee. All right, let's get on to the next slide here. So we'll start with current projects here, standards-wise at WECC. The first one that we'll talk about is the WECC 142. This is the project to request retiring of the BAL2 WECC standard. We had the comment period that was open it was open 60 days, November through mid-January. That closed during the entire comment period. All the comments that we received were supportive of the effort. The drafting team addressed the comments, made some minor non-substantive revisions to the white paper to make sure that some of those comments were clear, that the intent and the rationale was also clear. And then that has now been, the drafting team voted to take that to the WSC and ask for approval for it to be balloted. The next WSC meeting will be here at either the very end of this month or the beginning of March. They're deciding on when their next meeting will be, but at that meeting, it'll be presented, and the WSC we're anticipating will approve the ballot to be started. We'll be searching for the ballot pool to be made, and then that'll go out for the vote from industry. The next project is WECC 156. This is to address language in the WECC regional variants of the standard that could potentially be considered exclusionary based on the registration changes that were made. There's wording in there that states each generation resource that is part of the BES. That may or may not need to be changed. That was approved by the WSC to go out and make this a project. Drafting team solicitation is currently underway. We have several drafting team members that have self-nominated that will be joining on that, and it's still open if there's interest to be part of this team as well. That will also go to the WSC at their next meeting that will present the drafting team slate, and then work will start on that. So that's where we're looking at. This is one of those projects where there could be a change, there could be a clarification, or there could be no change. all those views will be presented at the drafting team meetings, and they'll be able to decide, what needs to be done, if anything, with the regional variants due to the changes in registration criteria. So next. Current projects at NERC. This is the NERC cold weather. Curtis couldn't be with us. Curtis Cruz, he's out on PT. So just giving a quick update on this, the cold weather project. The comment period for this one closes March 12th. There is no ballot associated with this posting. This is just soliciting comments from industry to be considered in the 321 initiative. There will not be another comment period for this. The comments that come in during this period will be considered, but ultimately will not delay submission to FERC. If it can be incorporated, if it's feasible, they will be considered, but there's nothing that is going to slow this down or stop this from being submitted to FERC. The drafting team has been making development or continuing to develop the implementation guidance for the ECWT calculation. That's an ongoing development effort with that. And then also looking at the cap extension and the cold weather constraint process in Align. How do those design aspects get into Align? And then there's also the abeyance language that has been updated in the standard. So just things to look at. But the big update on this is that the comment period is closing March 12th. If you feel that you need comments or you'd like to participate on that, please get those in before March 12th, as this is the last opportunity to do so. Next page. For other projects at NERC that are currently ongoing, specifically the NERC FERC 901 project that's been going on, the three main drafting teams that are working on this right now, the three main projects, is this uniform modeling framework for IBRs, the system model validation with IBRs, and the verification of models and data for generators. All of these projects are working fairly quickly. There is a tight turnaround on the deadlines. These have a submission date of November 4th of this year. So there will be some shortened timelines, some pretty tight turnarounds, which leads to they're all looking at trying to get their first ballot comment period in April. It will be a shorter ballot comment period. They're going to be asking for waivers to be applied to this, but the other thing with this is there's going to be two. I think that the drafting teams have allotted time for 2 ballot comment periods, and after that is when there will be some tough decisions will be needing to be made. How to proceed with that submission time frame that FERC is required in the 901. So if the first one opens up in April for these projects, please, having comments ready, get on there, have the comments out there that hopefully will help make the project better. They're looking for what can they do to improve it while still being able to get the consensus and the buy-in. And I've said it before, I'll say it again with this one especially, is if you do approve or if you're supportive of the project, that comment is just as valuable as asking for changes or updates to be made. The drafting team, the feedback on both sides, hey, we'd like to see something different, we'd like to see some updates, and also we agree with your direction, please continue. All three of those are valid. And oftentimes we agree with your direction is the last one that does not make it onto the list. So if you can, please put your comments in there, whether it's saying we'd like to see a little bit of a change or more revision, or we support this. All are valuable. But the things to keep in mind for this update for these 3 projects is that there will be tight turnarounds, there will be shortened ballot comment periods, and they're guaranteed 2 at this point before other decisions have to be made. But nothing after that is guaranteed. So please be mindful of that as we're going towards it. They're having in-person meetings. They're really trying to work hard to get this in a good place for April and the subsequent ballot comment periods, but they'll be looking for the comments to come from industry. So with that, those are the 3 updates that I have. I don't think I have anything after this one. If there's comments or questions, if not, feel free to reach out to either myself or Curtis regarding the cold weather or the standards projects. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Donovan. I don't have any questions for you at this time. If one comes in, we'll be sure to let you know. And we'll turn the time over to Mark and Abby for our inverter-based resource update.
Thank you, Maylee. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for attending. I will give a brief update of what's going on from the ERO level, NERC-wise, and then Abby's going to give you some details. We don't have any slides. It's just a quick update of what's going on in the IBR world, as we all know, especially Cat 2s. So NERC provided the 90-day update February 5th to FERC, and that was with a total showing 863 assets that are Cat 2s with a total of about 39,000 MVA. And you know, those as the regions go through, we all started our process in January of sending out the RFIs to Cat 2, and as we work through this, we find other Cat 2s, or we find that after analysis, they may be a Cat 1. So just a continued basis there on the IBR registration. Also on May 15th, 2025 will begin our last year of the FERC order. And that last year is the process of registering within CORS the Cat 2s. CORS is being updated, and we hope to have that completion from a NERC level to accept the Cat 2s at IBRs by June 30th. So once that happens, then we'll have entities start putting that information in, and it will subsequently show up on the public registry on whether it's a Cat 1 or a Cat 2 going forward. So from a ERO perspective, that's all I have, and Abby's going to give you some updates on what WECC is at right now. Abby?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. So I know Mark briefly touched on the 90-day update as far as all the regions, the total number of expected IBRs and the MVA. But from a WECC perspective, give or take, we're looking at 320 assets and close to 13,000 MVA. So just to kind of give you a ballpark, WECC is expecting the most IBRs. Our first batch of RFIs went out on Friday, January 24th. For the most part, we are going to target Fridays either every week or every other week. RFI batches will go out. The first batch and then the second batch, which was on February 7th, those two batches were targeting entities that we feel are probably new to WECC or possibly NERC. And then the third batch will be sent out tomorrow. And that batch will include 4 organizations and a total of 16 assets. And we're giving our entities, and this is for all the regions, 45 days to respond. So the third batch will have a due date of April 7th. And a couple of items just to go over. We are targeting the owners of the asset, but if a consultant should be added as a secondary contact, we can do that if the owner reaches out and lets us know that there is a secondary contact. I'd also like to mention that we are publishing RFI updates in the weekly newsletter, the WECC update letter. So please look at that if you haven't had an opportunity. That actually tells you what's going to be in the RFI. And the RFI itself is going to be just like a category 1. We're asking for the same documentation to be provided to us on our secure website. So you're looking for the interconnection agreement, the one-line diagrams, the GOGOP asset form, O&M agreements. And so, like I said, that announcement, if you would give that a review, you'll be able to go ahead and start the process and gather all your documents. And so that's all I have on my side. Mark, is there anything that I forgot?
No, I don't think so. We'll take any questions, Maylee, if they come up. But the IBR registration is in full swing.
Thank you both, Mark and Abby. I don't have any questions for you at the moment, so we'll go on to our next presentation. All right, Tom, I think you're up first, right?
Yes, thanks, Maylee.
All right.
Nice to be with you all today. Thank you for attending. Teri and I will be presenting today, and this presentation started as an update on the SIP evidence request tool, what's new in version 9. We decided to expand it a bit and look at it from the perspective of the first request for information, RFIs, that you'd see at an audit, because it turned out we also had been getting some questions on a new O&P tool called the Evidence Spreadsheet. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the Internal Controls Data Collection Template, the ICDCT. Let's go to the next slide. All right, so we'll be talking about the first 3 RFIs that go out for an audit. These are the 2 evidence request tools and the ICDCT. We'll talk about the timing and when they are due, and just a caveat that these slides apply to US audits. Next slide, please. What are the first 3 requests for information? We have the ICDCT, we have the O&P evidence spreadsheet, and we have the SIP evidence request tool, the ERT. A little bit of background on the O&P evidence spreadsheet. This is a new tool. It is not yet ERO-wide. The SIP ERT is used by all ERO regions. WECC is taking some leadership in developing a similar O&P tool, and we're working with NERC and the other regions, kind of piloting it in our region right now. And we've been getting some questions on it. We are using it at Audit. And let's talk about tailoring. Tailoring refers to modifications in these tools for a particular audit. Both the O&P evidence spreadsheet and the SIP ERT will be tailored to the audit scope. The ICDCT will be tailored to the risk-based audit objectives and scope. Next slide, please. Timing and additional RFIs. So the intent of these first 3 RFIs is for WECC auditors to have as much information as possible to plan their field work and create a more efficient process going forward, fewer RFIs going forward, because we've gotten the information we need up front. That's the goal here. What about timing? WECC will send the ICDCT about 6 months before audit commencement, and it will be due 60 days after that. The SIP ERT and the O&P evidence spreadsheet will go out 120 days, or the Friday prior if that 120 mark happens to be a weekend. 120 days before audit commencement, also due 60 days later. In other words, 60 days before audit commencement. WECC auditors could send additional RFIs as the audit progresses. There have been audits for which the only additional RFIs were for interviews. So that's an indication that these tools really are designed to get the information auditors need up front. Let's go to the next slide. ICDCT requests a description of your internal controls that you use to mitigate risks identified for the audit. A blank ICDCT is publicly available on WECC's website, and there's the navigation below that. There's a link at the bottom of this page for that blank ICDCT. And on the next slide, please, we'll see a screenshot of the blank ICDCT. It's an Excel spreadsheet that's available from WECC's website. Next slide, please. All right, shifting to the O&P evidence spreadsheet. This spreadsheet is based on the compliance assessment approach in RSAWS. An untailored spreadsheet is publicly available on WECC's website. The navigation you can see there. And the spreadsheet, as we said, will be tailored to scope and sent with notice of audit. And we'll see an example of the publicly available untailored O&P evidence spreadsheet on the next slide, please. We're looking at EOP 12 here as an example. So we have the request ID, we have the standard, we have the associated function, the requirement, we have the evidence request, what are we asking for? And then we have the align tags the secure evidence locker tags that we want you to use when you upload the evidence to the secure evidence locker. Next slide, please. All right, the SIP evidence request tool is actually 2 RFIs in one. There's a level 1 RFI due 60 days before audit commencement. And then there's a level 2 RFI based on that response to the level 1 due 30 days before audit commencement. Level 1 involves the processes, procedures, cyber assets, and other information tailored to scope. Level 2 involves implementation evidence associated with those processes and procedures. Based on the scope, the evidence of implementation could be based on a sampling of the cyber assets provided in the level 1 response. Next slide, please. And I'm going to pass to Teri to bring us home and talk about what's new in version 9 of the SIP ERT. Thanks, Teri.
Thanks, Tom. So we have an ERT working group, and there's 3 ways that these changes to the ERT could be prompted. One, obviously, is if there's a new standard or requirement that we need to address in the ERT. We also have requests come in from the various regions on opportunities to make the tool a little more efficient for gathering evidence, or if we're at audit and we find that entities are struggling with understanding something, we can submit a request into this team for a change. And then also the security working group, if you have any changes you wanted to recommend for future releases of the evidence request tool, work with the security working group, and they'll gather the requests up and they submit it to our team, and we go through those and try to incorporate those changes in. So the first thing before we go too far, I don't know, I still kind of have a little challenge sometimes when I go onto the NERC site trying to find where this ERT is. So here's a step-by-step. If you go to the NERC website under programs, areas, and departments, under that compliance and enforcement, over on the left, the one-stop shop. And when you get onto that page, scroll down to where you see the compliance pull down, and the ERT and the user guides are listed there. So next slide, please. So in version 9 of the ERT, the update the next thing we had to do is we needed to figure out a way to handle the new versions of the requirements and standards coming out, to handle multiple versions during the mid-year cycle, or as if we have any early adopters to any of the new versions that are coming out. So what we decided to do, and this seems like a really simple change, but we spent quite a bit of time mocking it up and figuring out the most efficient way to do this, because we do realize that entities do try to automate, or a lot of entities try to automate the population of the ERT. So we really don't like to make changes that could potentially impact that. So what we did is we are now including the version of the standard requirement in the request ID. So as you can see here, instead of just saying SIP-002, it has the complete version number in the request ID, and as well in the standard column. This will allow the regions to filter your ERT when they send it to you based on what's actually being audited for your audit. The next change we made is we updated the request IDs. So as you can see for the one we have listed here, we clarified what we were actually looking for. Some of the regions or the entities were struggling with what this actually meant. So we tried to provide clarity to that request. And we also created an update to SIP 251 R1 L107. And in that update, that's the one that's showing. In 05, the update that we included was, this is the request ID where we were seeking information on facilities that have a joint and or shared compliance responsibility. And we just clarified in that request ID that we were looking for information on registered entities, not just entities, and we simplified that request a little bit. The other request that we changed was, let's see, SIP 7. Oh, we added the new requests for SIP 3-9 and SIP 12-2. Oh, and then also for the SIP 12 R1 L102, we included in there, we specified that we were looking for the information that was used by the entity to make the determinations of the data that was necessary for the real-time assessments and real-time monitoring. Next slide, please. So on the level 2 tab, again, we deleted the entity response. This information we upload, and we want you to use the tag, the reference ID, and the tags that are provided in that the tags we provide for the upload into SEL. So we updated the request ID to include the version number again in here. We added a new sample set, personnel 0202, and we had entities struggling on, well, we were struggling on getting a good sample set for getting authorized access to BCSI. So we added a new sample set for that. And we also added something I'll show you on the next slide to help support that. And then we updated the SIP 10-4 R4L202 request ID. And you can see here the change that we made is we added that it's the TCAs that were managed in a manner either individually or by group. And again, we added the request IDs for the new SIP 9 and SIP 12-2, SIP 3-9. Next slide. So we updated the CA worksheet to include 10,000 rows of in that worksheet. If you have up to 10,000 cyber assets, we can now handle that. Earlier, I mentioned that we were trying to get a better sample set of who had authorized access during the period. So we're requiring that you select the type of electronic access each user has. So if it was electronic, physical, and or BCSI, so there'll be a new drop down that will give you all of the options to select one or two or all three of those type of accesses that were authorized during the audit period. And then the last thing that we did is we updated the ERT user guide, and we put quite a bit of time in this to update it to make some clarifications to make it easier for the entities to understand, and reformatted it. So there's a chapter for each tab. So if you want to hop in that and just go to a very specific tab that you're having a question on, the navigation should be easier for that. And that's all the updates we had this year. That's all we have.
Thanks, Teri. Maylee, back to you. Yeah.
Thank you both, Tom and Teri. I do have an initial question that has come in. Can you walk our attendees through how to locate the latest OMP evidence spreadsheet?
Sure. Let's go back a few slides. I don't remember the slide number. Keep going. Keep going. A little more. One more. Couple ahead, I think. There. One more. There we go. Thank you. Nope. Oh, okay. There we go.
We got there.
Okay.
We got there.
Yeah, the third one is the navigation. So start at WECC.org, in the upper left, go to program areas, then compliance, then United States. In the so-called accordion below that, in the body of the page, you'll see a section of the accordion called audits, and version 12 of the OMP evidence spreadsheet is available in that list.
Thank you so much. And these slides, normally we get them posted prior to the call. We did not this week, but this slide deck will be posted to the meeting and calendar item for this call, and you'll be able to look this back up if you need to. I am not seeing any other questions. We'll give it just one more beat in case someone's frantically typing. But I think we might be good. If we can go towards the end, we'll announce that our next call will be March 20th at 2 p.m. Mountain. Again, these are always the third Thursday of each month. Thank you again to all of our presenters. We are so grateful you were here to provide those updates for us today. And we would love to engage with you on WECC social media. We have a LinkedIn and an X account, and they're both at WECC Reliability. Thank you everyone for being here today, and we'll see you next month.